Patricia Talks.
Welcome to Patricia Talks, the show where you get to hear stories from everyday people about their extraordinary lives, from authors to sports personalities, TV personalities, and entrepreneurs. Welcome to Patricia Talks. I am absolutely delighted. My special guest today is somebody who I have admired for so many years. I can't remember when I didn't admire him. When I think of my guest today, I think of the words authentic. I think of the words torchbearer. I think of the person that has set a path so that I can do what I'm doing today, and so that so many of you can do what you are doing. I just think about how authentic he is in every situation I have ever seen him, both on TV and in person. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you my special guest today, Rudolph Walker, C.B.E. In fact, it might well be C.B.E. O.B.E., but we're going to find out some more about that. Rudolph Walker, I spoke to you before we started the show, and I have expressed what a pleasure it is to have you on the Patricia Talk show. I'm in awe of your greatness, and so I would like you to share some of that greatness with my listeners. So how are you feeling today? Let's start with how you're feeling today. You're looking awesome, but how are you feeling?
Well, I feel okay, but your introduction like that makes me very nervous.
Oh, really? It couldn't have been less of an introduction.
No, you know, you do things in life. You think you're here for a purpose. I do my job. I do what is comfortable for me. I try to be myself from very young age, and you just do things and you get on with life. You don't expect accolades or things.
Well, you've had a few accolades, and we're going to talk about some of those. But why don't we start from the beginning of your story? You were born in Trinidad. You started acting as early as 8 years old. Tell us about your life in Trinidad before coming to the UK.
Well, I always look back on my childhood with I have fond memories. And that's including all the beating and licks I got from my mother.
Necessary.
And they were plentiful. There's an old story going around every time I return to Trinidad and I meet some of my old colleagues who are still around. They say, boy, you got licks for all the boys in the neighborhood.
You took it for the whole town.
I took it for the whole neighborhood. Because mother, being a single parent, she took on the mantle of father, mother, everything. And, yes, you can look back. I can look back now and say there was a reason, but she was strict beyond comparison. She was probably the strictest parent that I can recall in my neighborhood.
Wow.
And as a child growing up, you don't like that, your beatings and whatnot. It's not something that you enjoy. It didn't put off my friends from playing with me, but the thing is that you will be out in the garden of my backyard pitching marbles, and like they can tell when mother is round the block because they scale fences in 2 seconds, drop marbles, and they're gone.
Wow.
But there was total respect for her, and with a certain amount of fear. But put that aside, it was a childhood of a certain amount of joy, pleasure, playing cricket for my school. My acting started very early in primary school. And the story was that, from my old teacher, when she was alive, she said that when they were doing concerts at Christmas time, and we're talking about a 5-year-old, 6-year-old,
Sure.
I would ask the teacher for extra bits to do.
Wow.
You know, each of us had something. You know, the Christmas shows that you know, as a parent, you would attend now, where your little toddlers perform Christmas carols and they do little things like, you know, play the donkey and whatever it is.
So
And
Rudolph,
yes,
you didn't want to just be a donkey or a star then. What did you
No.
want to be?
I just wanted to do more and more on stage. But outside of that, they said I was more or less a shy kid.
That's
but
interesting.
I kind of, once I got on stage, I was just, what should I say, kind of a different person.
I say you got into character. I mean the childhood that you've described thus far, I think so many of us from the Caribbean, even those that were born here in the UK, would recognise the mother that you're describing. We'd also recognise fond memory of marbles, which people, you know, the children don't really play marbles anymore. I don't think. It's great that at such a young age you had the character and the charisma to say, I just want some more, because your career to date will reflect that. So you were interested in doing some more as an 8-year-old, but at the age of 20, you made the decision to come to the UK, although you were toying with going to the US. Tell us about that time.
Well, what has happened, because from that primary school, I went on to elementary school, the equivalent of your comprehensive school here. And I was the youngest member. You know, I saw their shows at Christmas time, and I thought, wow, these are the senior kids. And I joined the drama group in school, and I was the youngest member, you know, in the drama school. But I worked my way through it, and within a couple of years at comprehensive, I was more or less assisting the teachers and directing the other kids. So I went from that forming my own drama group, even though I was still at school, outside school. And so I got youngsters together, kids together, and we performed in schools, did shows and wrote poems. And then from there, I went and I joined what was the leading amateur dramatic group in Trinidad, the Company of Players. Worked with them, and then went on to join Derek Walcott, the late Derek Walcott, as a youngster. He decided to form his own drama group in Trinidad, and I became one of his founder members. And as you know,
where did you get that drive from at such an early age? You talk about your mother being a very strong personality, and that the children would hear her coming and scale fences. Where do you think you got your drive from at such an early age?
As far as the theatre is concerned, I have no idea, because there is no member of my family. I'm talking about my uncles and aunts and people around me in the neighborhood. None of them are interested in the theatre. So it's a kind of a strange, as though someone out there, the old man up there is saying, you know what?
The ancestors or the higher being. Because it sounds very much innate. It sounds like you had this innate ability and this thirst and passion to perform. Tell us who Errol John was to you. Was Errol John somebody that you looked up to? He came to the UK also. Was he somebody that you remember?
Yes, I do. Errol was growing up as a youngster, and in those early days, you know, 15, 16, 17, 18, he was the big thing, because he worked, although he lived in the UK, he worked out of America. And he did, you know, he worked in Hollywood. He did something called A Nun Story. So as a Trinidadian, he was celebrated.
Mm.
And when he visited Trinidad, I invited him to see a play I was doing at the time, something called The Story of the Robe.
Sure.
And he came along, which I was surprised, but he came along. And in my chat with him after, my desire to further my career, he said, well, you have two choices. You can either go to America or to the UK. His advice to me at the time was, England would give you the better foundation, the better training. So I would just pack your bag and go to the UK.
And is that exactly what you did?
Well, there was a bit of a battle with my mother.
Okay.
Because I had a job in the civil service. I was a compositor training to be a compositor. So I was serving my apprenticeship at the government printing office, printing Hansards and designing, books and things like that. And so, the future, there aren't many kids would get that opportunity to be a civil servant,
Sure.
working for the government. And when I told my mother, no, well, that's not what I want to do, she wasn't too pleased about that. And I think it was almost a year passed before she suddenly came home one day, just like that, out of the blue. And she said, yes, I give you my blessing to go to the UK. And what I discovered sometime after, the day she said that, she was on a bus going from the capital port of Spain to Barataria or somewhere where we live. And she overheard a conversation on the bus between two women. The gist of the story was that they had sons, or they have sons, and regretted not letting them go to America many years ago, that they wanted to immigrate, wanted to go and do their own thing. And she made that decision then and there. I am not going to knock my son.
That was a real masterstroke, because that allowed you to make your journey to the UK. So when you got here to the UK, after your mum's blessing, when you got here to the UK, was it as Errol John had told you? Was it very different? Was it harder? What was it like for you?
Well, it was, as you know, growing up as a kid and all over the world, they say England, the roads are paved with gold. It was anything but. In fact, it was a boat trip from Trinidad to the UK. We were on a Dutch flagship, I think, called the Oranje Nassau. Wow. And on that particular boat, we had a rude awakening, because within a day, we sailed at night out of Trinidad. And we discovered that all the passengers were more or less men, young men from the Caribbean, from Jamaica, Barbados, other islands. And I think Trinidad I think it was the last stop. And we discovered that there were about 3 of us on board that boat who were going to England to further our careers, to seek, to be actors or writers or whatever.
Amazing.
It was amazing, because the person that sticks to mind, we became very good friends, was the late Trevor Rowan, who turned out to be a prolific Jamaican writer and poet, and wrote a lot of plays that I was part of over here.
And you met him on your journey over?
Yes, we all met on the boat. But what was happening is that after a day or two out to sea, we noticed that all the white passengers were up there and we were below, more or less in the hold. And we weren't allowed, we were served our meal, and nothing wrong with the meal, but we weren't allowed to go beyond a certain point.
Rudolph, can I ask you, would that have been your first experience of something like that?
Oh, yes, it was. No, we might not at the time interpret it as racism. but we've all found it a bit strange that we definitely weren't allowed to go beyond a certain point. And between us, we decided to do a show. So we got together, items, some of us wrote bits, sung calypsos, there were guys there who played the guitar, and we decided to invite the people from the upper deck, the captain, down to below deck so that we can perform. And we got a message saying, no, come upstairs and perform. So we did. And after that, we more or less had the run of the ship.
That's really pretty awesome, because that's so many years ago. And as young people, I don't know what your other new friends, how old they were, but you were around about the age of 20, right?
Yes, we were all around that age.
You're around the age of 20.
20. And all of us, nearly all of us, that was our first trip out of our various islands. First one going from Jamaica, the guys from Jamaica, first trip abroad, same with me. And so we were all around that age, 20, 20s. And for me, racism, it was something alien.
Sure.
Because my background growing up in Trinidad is that my relatives and my family come from all shades, going back from the sort of Portuguese. So when I visit some of my relatives, I'm sitting at a table with all shades of
Sure.
people. In fact, my uncle, my late uncle, his wife was white American. So there I am as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, or even younger, going shopping with her or going into Port of Spain, holding her hands or holding onto her dress.
Sure.
So, you look at these things on reflection and say, well, that's how I grew up.
So what did you make of it when you were on the boat on the lower level and you couldn't go to stop? What did you think was happening?
Well, what we thought was happening, I don't know, we didn't put racism.
Sure.
It wasn't that strong a word between us. Yes, we found it kind of odd, and we just put it down to the fact, well, maybe they pay extra amount of money to have the privilege of staying up there.
Sure. Like first class and second class.
First class and no class.
No class, no class. I love that. I think that's really important. That's a really important story. And I just love how you tell it. I love, your creativity in that you said, well, okay, we can't go up there. We're going to be traveling for a few days. Let's entertain them. Let's do what we're good at doing. How long was the journey?
Nearly 21 days.
Wow.
Yeah. But you see, the thing is that once again, I got to say that I always have this feeling that, we believe in elders. We believe in people who are looking after us. Because that experience and the way we handled it really has been the foundation to my career.
Absolutely.
And by that I mean, as you know, we have a saying, there are different ways of skinning the cat.
Sure.
And I realized as a young man growing up, all up until I left Trinidad, violence was something that I was never part of. I had one fight in my whole, as a kid growing up in Trinidad, one fight, and that was it. It's something that I prefer to look for another way of solving problems.
It shows in your character, because although you've played so many different roles here in the UK, we're going to go on to talk about that. Whenever seen in the public arena, there is this sense that you have that type of demeanor that you have just described. We're going to talk about the fact that you do some charity work, because that lends itself to your personality and what you've described thus far. But so you arrived in the UK, you did the performance, you managed to navigate your way to the top deck, and you made some new friends. When you came to the UK, did you stay connected with those friends?
Yes, we did. I mean, they went off to drama school. I couldn't afford a full-time drama school.
Mm.
So the first 2 or 3 years was spent because I trained. I didn't get all the certificates. I trained as a compositor. I was able to get employment in the local print tree or print work. So that kept me going for about 2 or 3 years because I did that during the day, and I went to evening classes, drama classes, to learn my trade and just to feel my way around, and did a lot of during that period, did what they call in those days walk-on parts, non-speaking parts.
Sure.
But
they do say there's no small parts in drama, right? So that, of course, is that was a big thing.
But you were learning all the time.
Absolutely. Did you know anyone else in the UK? Was there anyone that had come here before you that you connected with? You were totally on your own? Totally.
Well, what happened is that an uncle, I said my mother uncle, so it was an old guy, who had a young couple, or say a younger couple, they were older than me, living in the UK for a number of years, and he had asked them if they can find some sort of accommodation for when I arrived. And yes, they found digs for me in Islington.
Okay.
But no sooner I arrived, in fact, they were within a couple of weeks, they were on their way back to Trinidad. So the timing was good. It was good on one side because they were able to meet me and take me to my digs.
Sure.
And that was it. Yes, and I was on my own from there.
Wow. So Rudolph, you graced the screens in the UK in round about 1965 with a play called The Wednesdays. Am I right?
Well, it was a Wednesday play.
The Wednesday play.
Yeah, I mean, I did quite a number of plays on television. The Wednesday play, Play for Today, 30-minute theater. So there was quite a variety of work on television in those days.
How was that for you? Because I think today, people from the African diaspora are still struggling to get onto mainstream TV. The percentages are clearly different. So back then in 1965, were there some challenges, or was it kind of just there's a part and you can play it?
No. There were challenges. I mean, there are still challenges. I hasten to say that, yes, we are in 2022, 2021, but there are challenges. It's just that the goalposts have changed.
Sure.
But in those days, the challenges that we had as actors is that parts had to be specifically written for a Black actor. It, in one hand, it was kind of demoralizing because you know that when your agent put you up for a part, or if she looks at, for instance, she would get a breakdown of a television play, and every character, white character, this character, if there is a Black character, or in fact, if there is a Black character, all the other characters weren't highlighted, but the Black character was. It's played by a Black man. So they had to be specifically written, and in the play, there would be a mention. So if you're a doctor, the Black doctor.
Wow.
So those
they'd emphasize the color. They wouldn't just say the doctor, it'd be the Black doctor.
Yeah. Somewhere along the line, it has to be mentioned. And that became a struggle because the parts were few and far between. And when my agent at the time challenged any of the producers or directors, they said, well, it's not written for a Black actor. Full stop.
So they weren't actually even writing for Black actors, but when you auditioned, they would say, okay, you could play the part. But
you didn't get to the point of auditioning.
Wow.
You would only get there if it is stated this character is Black.
Oh my goodness.
It is for a Black actor. Very few. And there are times when I kind of broke that mold because also what happened is that you turn up for an interview for a play, and if it's a Black character, if it's a leading role, you are often told, sorry, Mr. Walker, you're not experienced enough. Now, how do you get the experience if you're not offered a part?
What sort of parts were they? Just as a matter of interest, what sort of parts were they writing for specific Black actors and actresses? What were those roles?
Well, Africa was going through all this coup. So there were colonels and presidents and things like that that's floating around. So I played a lot of African presidents, and, you know, my Nigerian accent became, you know, next to nothing. I compared myself to fellow Nigerians, you know, so I was playing, you know, South Africans, and as you know, and in the 60s and 70s, that was the, you know, the most of the time, those are the roles that you were playing. And occasionally you'd be playing a West Indian, you know, he involved with whatever, you know, might be a layabout, it might be drugs, occasionally he might be a nurse, or very rarely was he a doctor, you know, so those are the roles that were going around at the time.
I think one of the things for me, when I think about you as an actor, and I mentioned in the beginning that my early words that come are authentic, and I have to say it's your accent. It is awesome, and it has remained such. The tone of your voice is powerful and has remained such. You know, saying that, I think you're also very versatile. But I want to come now to probably what would have been my earliest memory of you. And that is, of course, the controversial Love Thy Neighbor. And so I want to, you know, we've spoken a bit about racism. You've spoken about being on the boat and kind of that being your first experience. You've spoken about the challenges for getting specific parts and being told. But Love Thy Neighbor, I think if you mention that to most people, sort of 60s, 70s children, they will remember Bill and Eddie. So tell us about kind of how you got that part, and what you think about the role that, you know, that you both played, actually, that the synopsis of that show.
Well, I one of the things that I have to say, first of all, and I think it is very important, anytime I have to talk about Love Thy Neighbor, and don't forget, this is back in the 70s.
Sure.
So, you know, there have been interviews and whatnot. Very rarely do I talk about it now, you know, only in exceptional circumstances. First of all, we got to remember, I got to emphasize the reason why I am here today and you are interviewing me is because of Love Thy Neighbor.
Sure.
If I didn't do Love Thy Neighbor, you wouldn't be interviewing me. I wouldn't be playing what I'm playing now.
Yeah.
So I think it is very important to acknowledge that.
I love that.
I have total respect, and I have no what's the word? I have no not objection. I have no regrets whatsoever about Bill Reynolds, playing the part of Bill Reynolds in Love Thy. The same way, and I got to emphasize this, that I have no criticism or anything about the people who went before me, who held the spheres, the American actors and actresses who roll their eyes and say, yes, sir, no, sir. I have no problems with that here in 2021, because what they did is that they opened the doors, maybe just a little.
Sure.
You know, they laid the foundation, and we continue laying the foundation as the years go by. No, we don't want to go back and play Bill Reynolds and Love Thy Neighbor, or to roll our eyes, you know, or to be holding the spears. We want to move forward and should have our rightful place in society.
I love that response. That's a great response, and I get it. And you're quite right. You know, you spoke about coming to the UK in your 20s. It's surprising you even found digs, as you refer it to, so easy. Because, of course, at that time, there was no blacks, no whites, no Irish, no dogs.
Oh, yeah.
You were fortunate that you had, you know, your mother's uncle to kind of pave that way. And that Errol John had said, this is the place, you know, to come and find your way. But you moved on from that. You did that part, and most people will remember you for that part. But we also remember you for the Thin Blue Line. You were also in Doctor Who. And another one of my very heartfelt times as a young person was Empire Road.
Yeah, with Norman Beaton.
Yeah, you were in Empire Road. So
yeah. But one of the things too, before we talk about those, is that not many people was aware of that, is that when I went for the interview, or when I was offered the part of Bill Reynolds in Love Thy Neighbor, I told the directors and the writers that at no time must my character be an Uncle Tom.
Wow.
I made that absolutely clear. I said, look, if this guy raised his hand to hit me, I am going to do the same. If he called a name, I'll call him a name. And throughout the series, that's the level of which we played it and got our humor. You know,
that's important. That's important because, as you said, there are still struggles now for us to end up on mainstream TV or get some of the roles that you want to get. And so sometimes maybe some people feel like, well, actually, this is just a role. I just need to get there, and I'm going to do this role. But what I really admire is the fact that you said, well, yes, I am going to do this role, but these are the stipulations at which I will do it, and these are the things I will do and the things I won't do. And I think that's important for upcoming actors and actresses to hear you say that, because you are somebody that we look up to. You've paved the way so that we can do what we're doing now. And so that's important for you to say, well, yes, I did that, but this is what I also did. So thank you for that. That's really important.
Yeah, but you see, but it is also, I also have, because I spoke earlier on about, you know, there were guys, for instance, going to the Royal Shakespeare Theatre Company during those years holding spears. There were guys doing parts that I wouldn't play. But I also have to respect those guys that did that, because as an actor, it was a struggle.
Sure.
And I mean a struggle, especially the ones who had a family. In those early days, I didn't in the 60s. Yes, when I had a family, it was tough. And so I wouldn't criticize or denounce the guys who decided to go on and do the holding spears at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre Company, who did all these things. Because what happened after Love Thy Neighbor, I was offered characters like Bill Reynolds to play, and I said no. You know, it was a sacrifice. It meant that there are things that I couldn't earn a living, and I had to go back to the theater. I was offered the Royal Shakespeare Theatre Company, and I said no because they couldn't guarantee me specific roles. And I said, no, I am not going to come to you unless you can do that. In those days, which, look back now, it was quite a brave thing.
Absolutely.
To do at the time.
I think you've shown bravery in that. You've spoken about being the youngest member back in Trinidad in a particular theatre group. You've been brave in that you've set up your own theatre company. You were brave in that you came to the UK, although you met a few people on the way. You came to the UK by yourself, and you've remained, and that in itself is bravery. And then going a step further now, you're saying, well, actually, this is a struggle. Everybody needs some bread, but I am not going to say yes to this particular one. So it gives those that are struggling with whether they should or shouldn't do a particular part, at least they know that there is some hope and some possibility that we don't have to say yes to all roles, and we can remain authentic, which is one of my 3 words for you. But you're also the voiceover for Teletubbies, right?
Yeah, so people are reminding me about that. I did that so many years ago that I honestly can't even remember what I did. I mean,
I think you narrated a piece or something.
yes, I did many moons ago.
But you did do theatre as well, though, didn't you? Tell us about some of the theatre productions that you did.
Theatre has always been my first love. One of the things that again, we are going back again many moons, and this is even before Love Thy Neighbor. I was doing again something that hasn't been brought forward or put on the radar. BBC was doing a football series called United.
Okay.
It was and a director invited me along to audition for one of the running characters. Obviously a footballer. I'm not a footballer. I didn't play football. At school, I dabbled in it a bit, but cricket was my game. I played a lot of cricket, and in fact, at one stage at comprehensive school or elementary school, the sports teacher was trying to encourage me to take cricket seriously because he felt that I had the talent to go on and maybe play for Trinidad.
Sure.
But it was just fun. I enjoyed it, and I still do. I still play cricket at the ripe young age of 82.
Oh, you still play cricket now?
I haven't played this year because of all the COVID and lockdown. But yes, I still have a game of cricket occasionally.
That is fabulous.
Yeah. So
theatre, you're saying, is your first love. It was even before Love Thy Neighbor.
Even before Love Thy Neighbor. Yes, I did. So I went along. I got this part of the football in United. Now, after about, I think we did about 6 or 7 episodes, and there was a gap before they brought me back into the series. They said, look, we don't need you. I think it was something like 2, 3 or 4 weeks, and then I'll come back as the character. It coincided with a request for me to go to the Malvern Festival Theatre to play Othello.
Oh.
So there I am as this youngster getting the opportunity to go to Malvern, and they didn't ask for an audition or anything like that. They just, and I thought it came about. And here's where I am, the what should I say, the braveness or the things that I took on as a youngster over here. Because I was being refused parts, I decided to write to every single director, producer in the theatre and on television, BBC, ITV, Thames Television. And because I was working full-time, working in the printry, I had access to printing things. So I set this thing up with a photo of myself, the things that I did in the amateur theatre, and I just went through, spotlight, everything. So I wrote hundreds of letters.
Wow. And sent them all off to all of these different individuals.
Send them all off. I mean, I just posted. And yes, out of the hundreds, I had the odd reply. But the odd replies that I had, they played a very important part in my life and my career. Because the guy from Malvern Festival Theatre, he had received one. So hence the reason why he invited me to come along and play Othello.
What a masterstroke.
So I went to the producers of United and I said, look, I have this offer and I'd like to go and do it. Their response at the time was, yes, it's a good offer, but the chances are that you might not be able to come back into United. We'll write you out. So I had the choice of playing Othello or going back to United, sitting around and waiting to go back on United.
Sure. Which
meant that, I would earn 4 or 5 times more than I would if I decided to go and play Othello. And I said, you know what? Othello.
Well done. Well done.
So that I did. I mean, many years later, when I was offered again the part in London, I had a working knowledge of the character, so I was able to come a little more equipped.
So you played Othello twice?
I played it twice or 3 times, and yes, with a remarkable director called David Thacker, who was at the Royal Shakespeare Theatre Company, who cast me at some stage. Again, that's an extraordinary story. But he wanted to do, he came from, I think, Leicester, and he got the directorship of the Young Vic Theatre. And he decided for his first production, it would be Othello.
What made you make that decision? Because, okay, Othello, a great part. What made you say, actually, I'm going to take the risk? What was it about that role of Othello?
Well, it wasn't, it was the decision, it wasn't difficult. Because remember I said that the problem that I had as an actor here in London in those early days is that you go for an interview and they say you're not experienced.
Sure.
You know, and how do you gain experience? So that's the reason why I wrote to all the repertory theater companies all up and down the country. I said earlier on about different ways of skinning a cat. I wasn't going to, you know, get on a soapbox and bludgeon BBC and ITV and all these directors and call them racist and say you don't want to cast me. No. And when I spoke to some of my fellow actors, and I said, look, why not try and work out in the sticks, Birmingham, Manchester? Sometimes the response was, oh, me boy, I want to stay in London and get parts, man. I don't want to go to Birmingham and learn shooting and live in digs in these horrible digs.
Yeah.
To me, that is how I learned my trade. I went out and I did the horrible things. I did, you know, horrible digs and good digs, good landladies, bad landladies. But that's
great. That is great work ethics. And that's an important story to tell, and will inspire so many others to do what you've done. Because you went on to be in a program that was great for us back in that time. This Is Your Life. And I feel like I'm doing a bit of This Is Your Life now. All I need is my red book. What was that like when, was it Michael Aspel? Who did your This Is Your Life?
Yes, I think it was Michael Aspel who did it. Yes, it was. Yes, of course.
You were at Lord's Cricket. Were you at Cricket, Oval Cricket
Lord's
Ground or something?
Cricket, because I played a lot of cricket for the Lord's Taverners and also a team called the Bunburys. And before that, it was the Vic Lewis 11, where a lot of celebrities in those days, and ex-West Indies cricketers and ex-England cricketers, we all played in these celebrity cricket matches. And yes, that was quite something. And, you know, we usually have a get-together at the Lord's Cricket Ground.
Sure.
And so that's what I thought it was on that particular day.
Wow, that was a thing, though, wasn't it? If you were on This Is Your Life back in the day, that was a thing. You were somebody if it was your life that they were presenting.
Yeah, but the thing is that you sit there, and you know you can't before you know they pick you up and then they take you to the to the dressing room and your clothes are there, not. But all the things going through your mind, are there any secrets? Are there any things in the closet they're going to dig up that are there people who I wouldn't recognize? So this is going through your mind as you're, you're sitting
or bring on somebody that I no longer like.
Yeah, but you're petrified.
Wow, I guess that must be scary.
Huh?
That must be quite scary.
It is scary. It is scary.
Could all your business be out on TV? And actually, it literally was, wasn't it?
Well, yes, more or less. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was quite something.
I've never thought about it being nerve-wracking, but that makes sense. You have no idea who's going to come through the door.
Yeah,
or what picture.
And because they did one of the actors I don't know if it was Nina Baden Semper who played my wife or someone.
Mm.
And Michael or the researchers said to her, I think it was Nina,
Mm-hmm.
or there's someone who will probably come on that you might not recognize, but you know, this is a so and so person. So you was kind of pre-warned.
Yeah.
Way that, and I thought, you know, I wonder if something like that is going to happen.
Some friend from school that you don't remember and you can't even confirm. Oh, that's brilliant. That's a new insight.
Or maybe the one person that I had a fight with.
That could be, because you said you only ever had one fight, right?
One, although we became very good friends after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
If they brought him on, it'd have been fine. That's brilliant. You've given me a new insight to This Is Your Life. But Verna Wilkins of Tamarind Publishers, she's written a children's biography.
Yes.
About you.
Yes, she did a few years ago. That's right.
What did that feel like? That somebody wants to write your story and so that children can hear that story.
Well, I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, it came about because number one, I did, and at the time, she knew I was involved with, you know, schools and trying to give children a certain amount of, what should I say, self-esteem.
Mm.
And that she was doing a series of books on high profile, you know, people, Black and Caribbean people at the time. So yes, and I, you know, I knew her. So she said, look, Rudy, is it okay if I do an autobiography, a children's thing? So I said, yes, that wasn't a problem at all.
That's nice. We're going to talk some more about some stuff that you do for young people. But of course, you know, we've had Love Thy Neighbour, we've had Thin Blue Line, Empire Road. But now if people say Rudolph Walker, they also, in the next breath, say Patrick Trueman of EastEnders. So how long have you been in EastEnders now?
Wow. Yep, it's 20 years. 20 years, I think, was it about a month ago? Yep, celebrated 20 years in EastEnders. It was only supposed to be something like 6 months, and here I am 20 years and I'm still there enjoying it.
Lovely. I remember looking back at when you first showed up in Albert Square, and you very much looked like you'd stepped off the Windrush. You know, those 1960 pictures, everything was crisp and sharp. And of course, your very famous Trilby hat that you're even seen wearing in bed with your interludes with Pat. Pat, I can't remember Pat's surname, but yeah, that was where you're still wearing your hat. So you're known for your hat and the way that you dress, but that you are a character. You can be someone's dad, someone's brother, someone's uncle, someone's neighbor. You just are that person in that soap opera. You've had a couple of women that are interested in you, and I can absolutely see why. There's no question about why that is. So tell us about you know, your introduction to EastEnders. What did it feel like when that part came about for you?
Well, one of the things that they do in EastEnders, and you discover this after a while, that there are certain actors that they target. When I say target, that the producer and the casting director would say, oh, would it be great to have this so-and-so on the series, or this actor. And they would agree on that. And hopefully, when something is written, they would approach you and say, you know, we'd like to meet you for the possibility of playing this. Are you interested? So that's how it came about. You know, it's something that they were interested in having me on EastEnders. And that's, you know, bless him, John York, who was the executive producer at the time.
And the thing is, you've remained, because we've had a few characters, Black characters that have come in and left. Some have died, some are never coming back. But you've remained for a very long time. You've been a constant in that program. And actually, it feels to me like you've been a constant on television as a Black male role model. You were awarded Outstanding Achievement Award for British Soaps. Now, when I saw that aired, it was emotional for me. Some of the actors and actresses you could see were moved to tears. What did it feel like for you? Because you gave an interesting speech. You said, you say thank you to the producer and your friend and but you said thanks to the creator. What did that feel like for you? Because you were talking about all of the accolades that I gave you at the beginning of this interview. What did that moment feel like for you?
Nerve-wracking. To say I was petrified, it was an understatement.
Really?
Because I just didn't expect it at all. And when Floella came up, and I don't hang around after shows. I mean, I have a reputation if I'm performing in the theater as soon as the show finished. If you want to meet me after, please leave a note, because I'm the first out of the dressing room, I'm the first out of stage door, and I want to go home. I don't go to the pub, I don't go anywhere drinking. I want to get out, go home, and lead a different life. So very rarely do I hang around after awards and all these things. But Floella was there, and I hadn't seen her for a little while. I thought, well, oh, there's Floella introducing someone, so I maybe hang around and have a quick word with her after. And then she started speaking, and slowly it's kind of dawned, hang on, she's talking about me.
Oh, really? So when she was doing the intro, he's this person, he's that person, you were working it out like everybody else.
Like everybody else, I was saying, but then, you realize, yes, she's, and apparently as it get closer and more to the point, I was sinking. They said I was sinking.
You were sliding, you kind of sliding. But your co-actors and actresses were kind of around you and already filming you and hugging you. And the look on your face, I think you were just like, this is all a bit surreal. Is that what it felt like?
Yeah. I mean, I look back and I talk about it, and it's emotional.
I felt emotional watching it. So vicariously, I was impacted because I was so very proud, to be honest. I was very proud. And I was very proud about the way that your co-actors and actresses could actually say, yes, you were so deserving of that award. And I could see the emotion I could see it in your face. And Floella Benjamin was so appreciative of the fact that you had supported her. And so she was very proud of you also. And that was great that, she got to give you that award. I think that was brilliant.
Yes, it was fantastic, because as she said, and you sort of do these things, as she said that she joined us in Love Thy Neighbor to do a few episodes. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of a normal thing to do. She was around, she couldn't find, I noticed she was at a loss. So I just went and said, introduced myself and took her around and showed her the ropes, and which is something I do for anyone. But I recognize the fact that, I at least been a few years in the industry, and I know what it's like. So
brilliant. That is brilliant.
There is another individual who would probably be going through the same thing as I did many years ago, a few years prior to that.
So you reached back. That's fantastic. Because to lead is one thing, but really to lead is to serve. And so the fact that you can go back and hold hands with someone else who's coming on that trajectory that you've already been on was awesome for her. You could see that. Listen, Rudolph, I could talk to you for about 3 days. I know that you don't have that much time, and I thank you very much for taking time out of EastEnders and using the gap that you had to spend time with me. But I just want to touch on a few things. I know that you are very much somebody who's got a charitable aspect to your personality. You and I have met at the Errol McKellar Foundation event around prostate cancer. And I know that there have been some other charity work that you've done. But you also set up your own foundation. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the strange sort of way it started, the seeds for helping youngsters go back to love thy neighbor. We can't get away from love thy neighbor. Can we? And hence the reason why I say I got to thank, you know, the people who cast me. But during Love Thy Neighbor, I started visiting schools, you know, in Brixton and Birmingham and Bristol and all these places. And one of the messages that came through so clearly is that youngsters were saying, you know, Mr. Walker, we leave school, and a few of us would gather at the corner and we, you know, what we call back in Trinidad, we liming. Or we talking. And the police would turn up and they would harass us, and we can't, you know, so what, we can't do anything at all. And I, you know, it's so alien to my childhood, when there was always something to do. And of course we weren't harassed because, you know, when we got together after school at a corner, play cricket or pitch marbles or something like that, as long as you got home on time so that you escape, you don't get we say a cut tail, or you don't get it. It was a norm. So I at the time I thought, well, look, I will introduce something called a drama competition, where I can get the youngsters, they form themselves into groups of either 10 or 15, and write, direct, and produce their own 10 or 15 minutes piece or pieces. And there were two schools involved, the Dick Shepherd and the Tulse Hill School.
Oh, they're very familiar to me, those two.
Yes. And the schools will select the 3 best groups. We'll invite them on a Sunday. We'll have all the parents and friends and family, and invite a number of celebrities to come along, give out trophies and awards, and meet these kids and their parents. And you know, we had the likes of Cleo Lane, you know, we had Carmen Monroe, a lot of high people at the time who supported us, and the kids loved it. They were very creative, and the point is that they were working outside school hours, so they had to either congregate in one of their friends' home, but they had something to do, something productive, you know, and it raised their self-esteem. They became very confident, and not necessarily youngsters who wanted to go into the business as actors. I made sure it was open to any of the kids in the school.
Sure.
Now that whole thing died after a few years. In fact, the schools no longer exist. Fast forward, a few years ago, I was again, I was approached by a colleague of mine in London to say, look, I want you to visit a center where youngsters are being expelled from school. You know, they're just one step away from going to jail, and you know, there are lots of issues, and as you know, in the sort of Hackney and all these areas. And I went along to one of these sessions and I met these youngsters, and you know, you're bowled over by the sheer intelligence of these youngsters, you know, regardless of whether they come from a single parent home. As I pointed out to a lot of them, I am a product of a single parent home. So I don't want them to use that as an excuse. I don't want the powers that be to use that as an excuse. You know, there is more that is happening. But anyhow, the most important thing was to try to give them confidence and empower them. And I decided with a colleague of mine that I am going to relaunch that inter-school drama competition. And on my 70th birthday at the Hackney Empire, we decided to launch the foundation with, you know, focuses on the drama award, on other awards that we've writing awards and role model awards and various things within the school. Just as I said, to give the youngsters confidence, to make them realize that, you know, there are people out there who care. You know, that there are other avenues that one can pursue They are all capable of achieving great things.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah,
Phenomenal and very neat, very much needed. And so that's a brilliant initiative to have, and I hope that continues to touch the lives of so many, because it is so needed right now. So because of your charitable work, because of your contribution to drama, you were awarded an O.B.E and a C.B.E.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like for you, both of those awards? How did you feel about those? Because you were totally surprised about, the Outstanding Achievements Award for British soaps. What did it feel like for you with the O.B.E and C.B.E? Where do you stand with that?
Both the O.B.E and the C.B.E, it's humbling, because you realize that the bulk of the people who recommended you were people within the industry, people you might have worked with over the years, or directors who have seen your work from afar, so it is sort of varied. And so in a way, it is a humbling experience. You can't help, I can't help but go back and think of my childhood, where the journey started, and not in my wildest dreams, all I thought of as a youngster coming to the
when you were playing marbles.
Yeah, it's just that all I want to do is just to be able to perform and get better and get more parts and more parts. I didn't think in terms of pounds, shillings, and pence, and I still don't. I never thought of the Hollywood carpet, because I have had the invitation on the odd occasion. It was suggested that I immigrate to America by one or two well-known American actors of years gone by. And although I made overtures over there, I've worked for American television, I realized that there is a battle here to be fought.
Rudolph, I have to say, I'm glad that this is the battle that you've chosen, because that means you are here in the UK. And it means that I get to spend the afternoon with you. I've had the most amazing time. Your storytelling has just been wonderful. And maybe Werner should think about whether your biography should be a film. And if it is, I want to play one of the roles. I don't know which one, but I want to be in there. But I want to thank you. I would speak to you for another hour, but I appreciate your time, and all good things must come to an end.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I asked that too. Should we just keep talking, do you think? Should we just keep talking for another hour? But I do want to say, I wouldn't have spent this last hour in any other way.
Oh, bless you.
And I want to thank you for your time. And I'm sure that we're going to see more of each other. I hope your biography becomes a film. What would you like people to remember about you?
Oh, I hope I made a contribution to society. Yes. It's as simple as that.
Brilliant. And if you got a phone call today to say you can go out for dinner, what would you have to eat?
Oh, what would I have to eat at this point in time? Something that I was in Ghana. I spent some time in Ghana a few years. I love Ghana. And with all due respect to my Trinidadian friends and family, I could sit down and eat a good Ghana stroke Nigeria fufu with the fingers. Yes. Yeah, or stewed fish.
Something nice and heartwarming about that, isn't there?
Something like that. I just something basic but I would have it with people around me who have a tremendous sense of humor.
Because that's the other thing, actually, you're quite funny as well. You're not just a straight actor. You're quite funny as well.
Well, bless you, but it's so important. Yes, I would enjoy the meal to its fullest if I'm sitting there just laughing and eating and making jokes.
As long as I don't need to audition, I'm coming to eat that fufu de grand yam, whatever it is you're having. I'm going to be there enjoying that. And I can tell you, I talk a lot, but I really laugh hard. I want to say to you, thank you so much for spending time with me. It has been an honor and a pleasure. And I've enjoyed every moment. But I am going to say thank you now. So this has been Patricia Talks. My guest today was the awesome, the fabulous Rudolph Walker, O.B.E, C.B.E. He has spent an hour with me of his precious time. In fact, probably an hour and more, and I know that he's busy. So Rudolph Walker, thank you ever so much for your time. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Blessings.